What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Touchdown with Doug Smith. Now, as you can see, folks, I am not alone today. I have a very special person, huge fan. I was such a huge fan of this gentleman here growing up, and I'm a little starstruck. You know, I'm going to try not to stutter my words, and I'll try to be professional today. But, folks, I have Levon Kirkland in the house. How's it going, my friend?
It's going very well. How about for you?
Oh, man, I'm hanging in there, you know, trying to survive Big Rona, so I'm doing all right these days.
Yeah, we all are. But I'm a big fan of yours too, Doug.
Oh, man, thank you, man. I appreciate you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Thank you so much. And for those who don't know, I really highly recommend y'all go to YouTube, look at his highlights. This man, he played in a Super Bowl back in 1995, two-time Pro Bowler. Played with some of the best players who ever done it. You know, the Rod Woodsons out there, the Kevin Greens. He's one of even the best to ever do it. He played for the Steelers from 92 to 2000, Seattle Seahawks in 2001, and even the Philadelphia Eagles in 2002. Even went out with the Bang Units to NFC Championship against the Buccaneers back when they won their first ring and stuff. But
that was a heartbreaker.
oh, my goodness. That was a crazy game. That was because I started really getting into football about 98, so yeah, I remember watching that one and stuff.
Yeah.
But just tell me what the journey has been like for you, like in a reflection.
Just like anybody else's journey, it's been full of excitements and disappointments and highs and lows. But at this point in time, right now, I'm working with the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame, and we educate, empower, and encourage young student athletes for their career and college goals. I do a couple podcasts at this point in time. I do one called The Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland, and I also do one with Believe, and that's the Clemson with Levon Kirkland, Clemson football with Levon Kirkland. So, I'm keeping pretty busy. I'm a father, single father. I have a one in college and also one in high school. She's 17 years old, so
Yeah.
you can imagine what that's like. I'm picking out a lot of dresses and
Girls are a trip.
doing a lot of fashion, giving her some fashion tips.
Yeah.
But, other than that, life is really good. Can't complain.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's. I know for a lot of folks when they play football, even for me, my little Weasley football stint and stuff, it's. How was it transitioning kind of into like just kind of normal life after the game and stuff?
Yeah, I think transition is when you play on the level that I play on, it's tough because you're so used to doing things a certain way, doing a certain time of the year. But you get accustomed to it. The thing that happens is you're always doing, whatever the team says to do. You're always on this pretty tight schedule,
Yeah.
whether you're in college or in the NFL. And I played for 11 years. So your schedule is always pretty much set out for you. Now, when you make that transition, now you make your time and you schedule your time, and that could be a little bit of an adjustment. And then also, you're doing a lot more critical thinking than what you did while you were playing. So I think it's a tough adjustment either way, whether you get hurt, whether you retire on your own terms, or however you leave the game. It's always tough because I think that it's something that you dream about so early, and to accomplish that dream and still got a lot more years to live, it can be a little bit it can be a lot of strain there.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And you see it a lot of times where football players they retire and they're for the next 2 or 3. You saw with Chad Johnson and him trying to come back in the league, and just so many great football players out there when this happens to. It's heart really breaks for them because you want to see people go out on top like MJ kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I think it's tough to go out on top. It can be done. I was fortunate enough to go out on my own. But a lot of times, guys don't, and sometimes you try to come back. Football is one of those games that's really tough to come back, especially you haven't played for a long time. So, as a game that's a really tough game, a collision sport, that a lot of times you usually leave banged up. So, it's a tough sport. It's a shelf life. But I really enjoyed my time playing football. It was a lot of fun. I was really fortunate in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And one thing I was actually reading up on you, I was not aware of. You're part of the South Carolina Sports Hall of Fame. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I was fortunate enough to be in three different Hall of Fames, which is
Uh,
the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame, Clemson Hall of Fame, and also the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame. And recently, last October, I was put on the stadium at Clemson in what they call the Ring of Honor. And the Ring of Honor is the highest um, achievement you can be as a student athlete at Clemson. So it's pretty neat. They put your name on the stadium, so you're there forever. So I got to see that with my family, and so that was pretty good. So I've been fortunate enough, like I said before, and blessed enough to really have some good times in football and be awarded for that. So I'm
yeah,
grateful.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And you're from, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lamar, South Carolina originally? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm from Lamar, South Carolina. It's a small town. It's about 70 miles away from Columbia, South Carolina, about an hour and a half away from Myrtle Beach. So it's in a pretty nice area, but come from just a typical small town. Really didn't have a whole lot of excitement. So for us, playing athletics was big. You get to go on the bus and go to another high school. You get to
Uh,
hang out with your friends. You get to play a game that's a lot of fun. And
yeah,
for me, which I think is fortunate too, I got to play basketball and also run track. So I was a pretty busy
nice.
kid and big family. I had seven siblings, mom and dad at home.
Mm,
We went to church a good bit. So
nice.
life was fulfilling. It was really good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then I was also looking, your cousins with Devon Still as well, too?
Yeah,
Uh,
honestly, I didn't know that. He actually reached out to me and let me know that I was his cousin, but I really honestly
uh,
did not know we were cousins, and I didn't really know how we were related. And
yeah.
he kind of explained that to me. I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't really know, but yeah, I kept hearing that. Yeah, he says he's your cousin. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And you know how it goes. I mean, you just a lot of times you
Yeah.
never know who's your relative and who's
Yeah.
not your relative. So
Uh,
it was kind of funny that he was, and he with his young daughter, her having cancer, and her
yeah.
winning that battle. I mean,
That
that
was
was a
so,
great story.
that
Yeah,
was so
it was very
beautiful.
touching.
That was so bad. I cried a lot of praying. So all glory to God for that. That she's doing
Yeah.
okay and stuff. And yeah, you should surprise who people are related to. You just never know. I lived in New England for a while, and I had a cousin who lived 3 streets over from me. I mean, you just never
Yeah.
know. And I'm like,
Right.
how are you? Wait, what?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well,
uh,
sometimes families they're not as traditional as other families. So you may have cousins everywhere. So,
oh yeah,
and I found that out that he was related to me. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, all right, that's interesting. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to take and go over just a few highlights of your amazing career. One thing I love about you is like you're a big guy, 6'1", 300-pound middle linebacker. That's big for a
right.
whole lineman. You out there moving, you covering tight ends and receivers, and you're blitzing. Man, what went into just you being just as far as preparation for the game and stuff like that? What are some things that you did that helped you to be successful?
That's interesting that you say that. I was kind of guy that I did when I prepared for a team. I always made sure I knew all the tendencies, what they were doing, and then at that time, the run game was still relative. So you're looking at the running backs, seeing what kind of running backs. You're checking out the tight ends and what they do in certain formations. But I was the kind of guy that did it at the office. So I did all my studying and everything there. And then when I left it there. I didn't really, try to look at it at home or anything like that. But I would spend maybe extra 2 hours maybe looking at film or studying my opponents. And then when it was game time, like on Saturdays, you kind of relax a little bit and you understand that you got to play, but I always thought that I prepared myself pretty well. And then when Sunday came along, I was really relaxed until the game happened.
Yeah.
And then, even then, I always trust my eyes, because playing defense, you either have to react or you're proactive. And what I mean by that, you're blitzing or you're really forcing the issue. In a lot of ways, you have to make sure you can read what's going on and understand it. And I never really got caught up if an offense got in a formation and say, "Oh, if they're in this formation, then they're clearly running this play."
Mhm.
That's not always the case. They could be running. They could be running anything. So I always trust my eyes, and I just wherever the ball went, that's the way I went,
That's
and
awesome.
that's how I played. And I think just for me, just being aggressive was always the key for me. I
Mhm.
think if you're aggressive, at least I know when I'm aggressive, I'm better. Even now, when I'm aggressive and I go after it,
Yeah.
it works out better for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that was basically my plan, just to go out there, see what's really happening, trust my eyes, and be aggressive about it.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, it's one of those things with football. If you second guess, and I'm sure you know this from experience, if you second guess yourself, man, that person, it just takes that millisecond for them to get that edge on you, you know. So
Yeah. Well, you really, honestly, I feel like you can't guess that you really, honestly, you can't be out there thinking. Let me say it. I think that's a better term. When you're out there thinking,
yeah.
that's when you get in trouble. You don't really have time to think. You have so many plays that it's all about repetition and seeing it over and over, and then it's about having confidence in yourself and seeing what's happening in front of you and making those plays. So I always say, even when I coach, I was always when a player comes to me and say, "Well, I thought it was this," I'm like, "Stop thinking so much.
Yeah.
Stop
Yeah.
thinking so much and just play the game. Go out there, see what you see, react to it, and be aggressive." And you're right. Football is one of those games that you can't be out there saying, I wonder what they're doing. Are they doing this? Then it's
Yeah.
going to be too late. And then
Yeah.
somebody's going to hit you directly in your mouth. And you don't want that to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah. Getting the bell rung ain't never fun.
Right, right, right.
Happens to all
Yeah.
of us when we play the game, you know.
Yeah. If you hesitate, you get blown up. So
Oh yeah.
you,
Oh
you can't you can't hesitate at all.
yeah. And I have to ask because he's one of my favorite running backs of all time. Jerome Bettis. He's one of your
Right.
teammates.
Yeah.
What was it like tackling the bus?
You know what? I have a funny story about
Uh,
Jerome and my relationship as far as football is concerned. Me and Jerome Bettis would never go against each other.
really? Okay.
Yeah, we kind of made a deal with each other. I think we might have went against each other once in practice when he first got there. It was
Yeah.
around my fifth year. Both we both made a Pro Bowl that year, and we were really well. I can speak for myself. I was really becoming a better linebacker at that time. He was already a pretty established running back, and Jerome was incredibly quick for a big man, incredibly strong, a fierce runner, great vision, everything. I mean, bottom line was he's a Hall of Fame running back.
Yeah.
And I guess we went against each other one day in practice. And I think the next day we both kind of came up to each other and had this conversation. We like, dude, let's just not go against each other. Let's just if they try to
I
put
get
us against
anywhere.
each other, let's just not go against each other. So
Yeah.
we just after that we never hit each other.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, so we were smart enough to understand that we both can probably hurt one another,
yeah.
and there's no reason for us to go against each other. So we didn't. So
Yeah.
that's my story about Jerome Bettis, and I always admired Jerome and the way he run, and he fit the Pittsburgh mold. It was a great running back, and I can't believe we got him for a fourth round pick. That was a
Thank you,
epic
Rams.
steal. Yeah, thanks Rams. Great job of doing a
Hashtag
bad job.
Rams.
Great job of doing a bad job. Yes.
Funny how things work out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, throughout life, you've had an amazing journey and stuff like that. And I see here you have had some coaching too. You were at FAMU and stuff like that, or Florida A&M for those who don't know. You were outside linebackers coach for the Arizona Cardinals as well. What has that? I mean, you have this amazing life story, and then here you are. You get to work with young men and
Hmm.
share your expertise. What is that whole experience?
Well, it's something that I always wanted to do, to be honest with you. I used to have football camps before there were football camps way back in the day. And I always wanted to give back because I was a student athlete myself in high school. And I knew there was a lot of kids that were good athletes but didn't quite make it to the next level for whatever reason. And I wanted to be a part of something that would help those athletes out. And I just have a heart for them. I just have a passion for them. So really coaching kind of goes into it. It kind of connected. So when I was doing football camps and I just kind of, after I finished playing football, I was being an instructor at football camps and I just kind of really fell in love with the coaching aspect of it. And I went on to coach high school for a while, was a head coach at a Christian school for like a year. Then I went to FAMU for 2 years, and then I went to Arizona for 2 years. And now what I do, I think is really kind of my calling, to be honest with you, to really affect young people, athletes. So to explain the inside blitz with Levon Kirkland, we talk to student athletes who are doing very well in the classroom and who are doing very well on the field. And then we also talk to great athletes from the state of South Carolina are affiliated with South Carolina, which means they played at Clemson, South Carolina, Citadel, Furman, or one of those schools.
Yeah,
So we talk to those athletes and we try to get leadership points. We try to um, get their story and their journey. And we try to make sure we spread that across the state of South Carolina because right now we're 43rd ranked in the country as far as as far as college and career readiness. Being
wow.
43rd is not really good. So,
Wow.
what we try to do is we try to make sure we help those students. And I think this is an incredible opportunity for different businesses to advertise
Yeah.
and to present their brand on our podcast. We have a live stream. Last year we did what we call our Bridge Builders Excellence Award, and we had that live stream, and we had a lot of people to view that. So if you're a business out there, this is an opportune time for you to get in front of an audience that you may not have the opportunity to get in front of. So doing that kind of stuff, I think it's about giving, and I think it's about making sure your knowledge and experience is not wasted just on you. So I feel like it's a calling, it's a ministry in a lot of ways, and it's going to continue to get better and better.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And you mentioned about ministry and mentorship throughout this interview. What are some things that kind of motivate you, inspire you? I know for some people it's God, some people it's money, some people it's family, changing the world. Everybody has a little bit different thing. What would you say that would be?
I would say maybe just making the world a better place,
Yeah,
and especially at this point in time because we're going through not only a pandemic, but we're going through a shift as far as race relations is concerned. It's something that I think this country has never really quite healed. And I think that in a lot of ways, as far as the United States of America, maybe we've never apologized for the way this country was built as far as slavery is concerned. I think that in order for you to heal a lot of times, you got to recognize that maybe you were wrong
yeah,
and maybe you could have done things better. And maybe the system isn't fair to a group of people just because of their skin color. And I feel like, we have an opportunity to make this country a lot better, to really live up to that original promise about all men being created equal. So
Absolutely.
I feel like it's a part of my journey to help the student athletes be better people and better citizens, and to also have a network and a support system that's going to always be behind them. So that's really my whole purpose, is to educate, empower, and encourage people to be successful in their lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, it's for those who are watching this too. You know, when it comes to all the stuff going on in the world, humble yourself, educate yourself. Um, you know, it's okay to say I don't know. You know what I mean? And I just pray for unity, especially for we really need to help our Black brothers and sisters. You know,
Yeah.
1000%. So thank you so much for sharing.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, like I said, I'm just I have found out the more authentic you are, the better
Yeah,
off you are.
yeah,
So I'm just being authentic to my feelings, and I really believe that we're here beyond our own selfish purpose. That we're here to serve and to give back. So
absolutely.
that's what I aspire to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're doing a phenomenal job, man. I watch a few videos online, and just to see, kids' faces light up when they see you, and just look up to you as like a hero, not only in this country, but in the community as well too. And it's so beautiful. So that's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And a lot of times it's funny because some of the kids probably have to Google, to
Who
see who
is?
I am. And then they're like, oh, okay, you actually
Yeah,
did play in the league. But it's okay. I mean, I don't care
yeah,
about that. The only thing I care about is, sharing their stories and giving back to them. And I think it's neat that we talk to people
yeah,
in South Carolina that done very well and very successful on the iron, and they are able to tell their stories. And I think that's unique. And in South Carolina, I think that if we don't do anything, I think we produce really good football players.
yeah,
and and I think people need to hear those stories. And as a young person, when I was young, I read about a lot of athletes and what they did, and where they came from, and that really gave me a lot of hope and inspiration because it was similar to my situation. But now we can actually do that on the platform of social media and through technology. So if they can hear those stories, I mean, it can be amazing. Last week we had Art Shell on the show, and Art Shell
nice.
was the first African American head coach,
Yeah, yeah.
and he
70s it
comes
was.
from North Charleston, which is in South Carolina. A
Yeah,
lot of people
yeah.
don't know that fact.
Uh,
And he told us, when he came through and how it was and how he almost played for Grambling, but Maryland State came in. It's called
uh,
Maryland Eastern Shore, and
yeah,
how
yeah.
a guy actually drove in and said, "Hey, I'm here to pick you up."
Uh,
And things like he playing basketball and football for that university, and
yeah, yeah,
how his relationship with Al Davis, not even to speak of John Madden, how Al Davis really encouraged him to be a head coach.
yeah.
And it's like, wow, it tells a story of believing in yourself and also a story of being proactive as far as your career is concerned. And at that time, as you know, there's no African American head coaches.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that
Yeah,
was
so
the
for
late
him to be
70s it
able
was?
to get to that level was amazing.
And it's absolutely, and that was the late 70s it was when our show came in, or early
Well, when
80s.
Art was playing like 70s, almost to the 80s,
Oh, gotcha.
I think he played like 84, maybe been his last year. So I think he played like 15 years. So he played for a long time.
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
grew up in an era where race relationships wasn't that great,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
that
Segregated.
Southern schools were not drafting African American football players. And if you look at the Southern schools now, they're full of African American football players. But imagine you being born in those, and when he was born or coming up in high school, Clemson, South Carolina, Alabama, they were not recruiting African American players. Now they're full of African American players.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a different time, and for
Yeah.
him to be able to get a head coach job with the Raiders was phenomenal
Yeah.
because there was never ever a African American football player. I mean,
Yeah.
coach at the time. So for
Absolutely.
him to be the first was a phenomenal thing, and I guarantee a lot of people in South Carolina don't know that, but they watch our podcast. They get the inside blitz, the inside story, and that could inspire not only maybe a student athlete, but if you're an up and coming coach, you're at the high school level, or you're a grad assistant, hearing that story can inspire you. So that's what we're all about.
Absolutely, absolutely, and right now, especially you have like the NFL, and there's an initiative where there's a black GM or black coach. You
Right.
know what I mean? There's certain initiatives that are going to help out those teams get extra draft pick and stuff.
Well, it's only
Easily,
fair. It's only
absolutely,
fair. I mean, you think about it. I mean, most of the league, this African Americans.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's like seventy
we
percent or something like that.
right. We're good enough to be players, but we're not good enough to go on the next level as far as coaching, being a GM. To me, that's it's long overdue.
Yeah,
It
I agree.
is. It's just
I
long
agree.
overdue.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And you think about all the coaches who wanted to take and make that extra step to NFL, but that opportunity was blocked because of preconceived notions that were trained, or maybe they even did it purposely. You know,
Right.
absolutely.
And a lot of times too, I mean, you get GAs and it's usually young white guys who the GAs that end up being having those relationships with the coaches that a lot of times sometimes black players don't have,
Yeah,
you know? And I mean like you get guys that are not as not well I'm not saying it's, they're not really some of the players that actually played
yeah,
on the field. A lot of times they're, you know, hey, they play a little bit or whatever, but a lot of times in big time programs, you know, there's usually a lot of white coaches, and what they do is they usually bring up a white player, and I'm really talking more so in the past. And so you had a majority of guys who end up being head coaches or GMs. They end up getting that experience early and they bring them up. A lot of times, if a guy like myself want to be a coach, you know, my experience as a player in the NFL level doesn't really matter. But then a white guy comes along and it does, and you know, they bring him along, they make him a coach right away,
yeah,
and they'll try to tell someone like myself, well, oh, you don't have the experience. But another guy who doesn't have that experience gets pulled up right
exactly,
away.
exactly.
So in a lot of ways, when people may mumble and grumble about the initiatives, well, they need to have those initiatives in play because they don't get the opportunity otherwise.
Yeah,
Because those coaches don't say, hey, let me bring so and so aboard and let him be a GA early on. And so I think that's that disconnect there. You know, you don't have a lot of you don't have a lot of African Americans in that position to like, hey, let me bring up guys that I want to bring up. You got more so Caucasian guys in the, especially the football arena,
yeah,
where they're always bringing up uh, other whites
yeah, yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, it's very rare. You could count on one
Yeah,
hand where with Tony Dungy when he started with the Bucks way back in the day. You know where
right.
he brought in.
And that took Chuck Noll to see it and to bring that in the forefront.
Yeah,
So a lot of times, you know, let's get it real. A lot of times, as an African American, man, to get on that coaching level, man, you have to be almost excellent
yeah, yeah,
to get there.
yeah,
Where I think a lot of times, as a other, I mean, some others, you don't have to be excellent. You can just be a guy who knows a guy.
yeah.
And I think that's the
Connect.
unfortunate thing in football. As a African American or any minority, or you know, now they're females, you have to almost be excellent to even get to the level to that high level.
Yes,
You know, so
absolutely.
those, if anybody ever asks why those initiatives are in play, well, they got to be in play because
Oh,
they're
they have
not
to.
in
Yeah,
play. people are not doing it on their own. They're not saying, "Oh, let me bring this guy up." They're not
Exactly.
doing that. So
Exactly. Yeah, the playing field has, for those who are watching this and you're still confused, you just have to know the playing field has to be equal. If it's equal for you, it should be equal for all people. That includes black men and women who want to take and be part of the National Football League, but not just the NFL, the CFL, and other leagues as
yeah, and I mean, I think just all over.
well.
It's all about just equal opportunity. And I think that this with the pandemic occurring, and a lot of our distractions being really put to the side. If you think about it, I think that's why George Floyd got so much attention because a lot of our distractions were out of the way. So we had to kind of face it.
Yeah,
You know, you couldn't really
and
go
run
out
away.
to eat. You couldn't go out on a vacation. You couldn't just go watch a football game or a baseball game or a basketball game. You didn't have a lot of distractions. You saw that. I thought, I guarantee you, so many people saw that more so than anything else, and they had to pay attention. And that's why I think now everything is kind of opened up a little bit. People, I mean, there's had to be a lot of reflections and a lot of lessons that have been learned, and we still got a ways to go, but that kind of opened the door, I think, to a lot of discussion. And, I have to say, it was great to see other races out there marching for equality too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's and even if you look back to back in when the Mississippi bus bombings took and happened, like white America was just just that they just weren't paying attention. When you start seeing other white people getting bombed because they're sticking up for black folks, then it's like, oh, whoa, now I see it, and it shouldn't have to come to that, but
Right.
but to see people coming together is truly a beautiful thing. And
Well, a lot of times you have to have skin in the game. If you got skin in the game now, you understand and you see it from perspective. It's just like with anything. If you never experience a family member having cancer and dying from cancer, then you may not know what it feels like when when someone has cancer. You don't really have a lot of skin in the game. But then when it happens to you,
yes,
then you like, wow, you wake up a little bit. Like for me, the one thing that really woke me up is, and it put it in perspective, when my wife, who unfortunately passed away from lung cancer, and she wasn't a smoker,
yeah,
and you used it, and I used to think lung cancer really kind of happens to people who smoke, and you realize no, it doesn't. It can happen to anybody. That can occur to anybody. Don't Smoking doesn't help, but you can have it and be a non-smoker. And so at that point, I had some serious skin in the game. I realized that this could affect anybody. And I think that's what happens to people who don't understand causes. They don't really have a skin in the game. It hasn't happened to anybody they really know or really close to. But um, when something happens to someone then it becomes on your radar. And I think now, by seeing what we saw, people like, wow, I could imagine that being one of my loved ones or somebody I care about. And this world is becoming more global. We're having more people that are, interracial marriages. I mean, so we're not just so black and white anymore.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's why you're seeing not just only the black community, but a lot of communities that understand it and are great people and want what's best for this country and what's best for over all people, not just African Americans, but anybody who's being treated unfairly.
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
you had mentioned something. We're in the digital age, so it's like we can't hide from nobody anymore.
no,
Like
not
I could
anymore. We
look up,
can't.
like I do a little bit of HR work for the company I work for. So when I'm interviewing folks, I'm like, oh, you see what's going on their Facebook, just to kind of get
Yeah,
a quick personality profile. You learn real quick,
yeah.
like, oh, that vibe
That's
when I
kind
was
of
talking to
funny
you.
because that's one of the things we did a little point
Oh,
on is about social media, about athletes, wanting to go to college and why social media is so important. what you put on your page and the information that you give to, the different colleges. And I think a lot of times we do stuff on Facebook or social media and we don't realize everybody can see it. So you
Mm-hmm.
got to be a little careful what you put on there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Even little stuff. I mean, I remember just
Even little stuff.
football smack talk. Just like innocent stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you go to work and you're like, "Hey Billy, how's it going? What's up?" Weird. That's being weird to this. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff, so everything, oh my goodness. Well, I do have to take an answer. So you played for some amazing teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers in the '90s were just wreaking havoc left and right. You also played for Clemson before that. You're South Carolina legend all around, even part of the NFL All '90s team. If you had to create your own Mount Rushmore, and you can definitely I'll throw yourself in there for you, okay?
Okay, sure.
like 4 to 5 people. For Clemson and then also for Pittsburgh. Who would
Wow.
I know I probably do that one out.
Well, I think in football, I would put a guy named Homer Jordan who actually won the first national championship for the University of Clemson.
Oh, beautiful.
Which people kind of forget that quarterback legacy started with really him. I mean, Steve Fuller, of course, but Homer Jordan was the quarterback that led Clemson to the national championship, the very first one they had. Gosh, a lot of people don't recognize this guy, but I would like to. His brother is more well known, but I think that Michael Dean Perry has had a better career than William Perry has.
Okay.
Even in the NFL, but nobody really knows that. I mean, he was he was ACC Player of the Year from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah.
And then, he also won Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL and for the AFC at one point in time. So this guy has a resume that, man, his numbers should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, yeah.
But
absolutely.
Nobody kind of recognizes him as far as that concerned. As far as Clemson, I would put also Deshaun Watson because I think he led Clemson back to where it's really enjoying success right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I would have to put Brian Dawkins up there too. He's the first. Yeah. He's the first Hall of Famer for Clemson, and so it'll be a little crowded up there. Mount Rushmore with probably more than 4 people.
Yeah,
that would be my Clemson. I mean, for Pittsburgh, you got to put Mean Joe Green up there.
Oh yeah,
you got to put Mean Joe Green up there. If you don't put Mean Joe Green up there, there's nobody else that gets up there.
You don't know football, then.
Yeah, you don't really know football. God, man, Pittsburgh is hard though. Yeah. There's so many great.
That's a tough one because you could.
I know you got to put Mean Joe Green up there. That's for sure.
Got to. Oh,
and then I think you can put probably a lot of other guys up there. I mean, Jack Lambert could go up there. I think. Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah.
Rod Woodson. There's so many. I think you can have several Mount Rushmores for the Pittsburgh Steelers and be okay. But if you leave out Mean Joe Green, then there's no way you can have a Mount Rushmore for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I know one guy for sure should be up there, and that is Mean Joe Green. And maybe you put Chuck Noll up there too. I think Chuck Noll comes second.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
all the other guys, it's a toss-up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, especially if it's sports, Joe Green has to be in there, hands down. Has to. Absolutely.
He has to be there, hands down.
Yeah.
I think Chuck Noll has to be there, hands down. You're talking about 4 Super Bowl wins as a coach.
Yeah.
Which was kind of unheard of at the time.
Terry Bradshaw era.
Yeah. So who's the other 2 that you put up there? I think that's a heck of a question, actually.
That's tough. If I had to add 2 more, Lord have mercy. Okay, I would definitely take an ad. Troy Polamalu.
Troy Polamalu might be
for the newer generation, and then for 90s and 2000s, I'll probably add in Jerome Bettis there as well.
That's a good Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
that really is.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then and shouts out to Head and Shoulders, those commercials that they do with Troy Polamalu.
I tell you what, if you're talking about representing
Uh-huh.
a certain era, then yeah, Troy is definitely there.
He's like,
But man, they've had so many Hall of Famers.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to get on the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get on that thing. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it's
Oh yeah.
tough.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. And that being said, man, Pittsburgh's looking good. They're looking real good this year. I mean,
they
they're
look
looking.
pretty good. The last two games,
Uh,
I mean, they played the Giants and they played the Broncos, so not
yeah.
great teams.
And the
But I
Broncos
thought Ben
quarterback.
looked. I thought Ben looked very capable,
Yeah.
and I thought his receiving core,
Mhm.
they're pretty good.
Oh yeah.
They're
Juju
pretty good.
Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, he's really, from last year not having a great year,
Uh-huh.
he's having a good year so far
Yeah.
this season.
Oh yeah.
So it goes to show you in the NFL
Uh-huh.
or in college, man, you always want a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You do.
Oh
If you
yeah.
can keep your trigger man happy, then
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. But if you
Yeah.
don't have a great quarterback,
Uh-huh.
it's a little tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, you look at the Dolphins through the mid 2000s, '05, and it was just like, and they had all these defensive players, but the quarterback was boo boo. Or you look at a lot of different teams where like defense is phenomenal, you got the weapons, but the quarterback play is just
Yeah, you got to be able to score points.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I appreciate a great defense as much as anybody, but I feel like if I had to choose,
Yeah,
I would choose the great offense and a great
yeah.
quarterback
Oh yeah,
because you got to be able to put points on the board. It's harder to put points on the board as a defensive unit, no
yeah.
matter how great you are. You can hold people down,
Mm-hmm.
but on offense and then football, you can get two big plays,
Yeah,
and if you can't produce points, then that might be it for you.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if your
So
defense
I
is
mean, especially in
phenomenal,
my era,
yeah,
if you get down, like especially if you got down to us 14, 17,
uh-huh.
we're gonna win that game.
Yeah,
But if we if you can't score, then it doesn't really matter.
yeah,
So you got to be able to score.
yeah, absolutely. You have to be able to score, and it's and in the defense, sometimes you get burned out. They're constantly 3-and-out. Okay, defense is back.
Yeah.
3-and-out. Defense. Oh, and then they got one first down. 3-and-out again.
Well, defense is such it's an energy thing. You got to
Oh yeah,
be able to have because a lot of times you're doing most of the reacting.
yeah,
You're not. Offenses know what they're doing and they can create a certain pace.
yeah,
On defense, either you have to force the issue or you're doing a lot of reacting. Either way, you're spending more energy than you do on the offensive side.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So therefore, you get blown. That's
Mm-hmm.
why it's important to have depth, especially in the college game, but also along the D lineman in the pro game. You got to have some depth, or you're just going to get worn out. So
Absolutely.
that's why it's important to always, when you can, get that quarterback who can get that ball downfield and can generate some points.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And yeah, you talk about depth too, like those injuries when they happen, and you have some other person in there that doesn't quite fit the mold for the person who is starting. It's like
It's
things can fall
difficult.
out. Yeah, things fall
It's
out pretty
difficult.
pretty
I was
easily.
with a team when I was with Philly, and we did it in a way
Yeah, yeah.
where when Donovan McNabb went out with a broken leg,
Ooh, I
and
remember that. Yeah.
and then we had Coy Detmer.
Boy, Denver. Yeah,
Yeah, he played the next game, and he got hurt, and he was out for the
yeah.
season.
Shoulder, right? Shoulder,
I think no elbow.
elbow. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And as a defense, and really everybody
Uh-huh.
else we did a great job
Mhm.
of stepping up our game because then AJ Feely came in.
Mhm.
And AJ actually, I thought, did a really good job when he was
Yeah.
in there. But we knew that AJ was a third string quarterback for a reason
Yeah.
and that we had to play at a high level. And, once it got to the NFC championship game,
Yeah.
Donovan just came back. I think it's just his second game back.
Mhm.
And it kind of showed because he wasn't quite the quarterback. And you got to give Tampa a lot of credit
Mhm.
because they played a great, great game.
Yeah.
And they were able to beat us. I think that's because Donovan just got back. And he wasn't quite at the level he was, and it caused us an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I think, like I said before, man, I love great defenses, but man, if you got a great offense, that's even better.
Yeah.
But I think going back to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you see a difference what Ben Roethlisberger made instead of the guys that tried to do it last year. It's a big difference.
Oh yeah. It definitely that whole team looks revitalized, and he even dropped some LBs. It looks good. So hopefully that'll pay off on the field, and they're just having fun. I saw Juju Smith-Schuster. I always mess up his name sometimes. He did probably the best touchdown celebration I've ever seen, where the guy he jumps into the audience, pretends to be.
I saw that, and they gave him the ball. So in the wide receiver room, you got to know that they're always thinking about their celebrations.
Yeah.
They're thinking about what they're going to do once they catch the ball.
You
got to have a good, you got to have a good celebration.
Yeah.
But you know what? I like my wide receivers cocky like that. I like them flamboyant. I really do. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I just miss Terrell Owens sometimes. Just come back for one more year, T.O.
Yeah. T.O. was a tremendous player, man. He really was. And, really to come from where he come from, man, and to really become a great player. And I think what's underrated with him, that his teammates loved him.
Yeah.
I know the media gave him a tough time, but I always say the measure of a athlete, especially in a team sport, what did his teammates think of him?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, guys that you paint as a good guy, the media seems to love him. Their teammates hate him.
Oh yeah,
their teammates can't stand him. And the guy that they perceive to be just arrogant or whatever, their teammates loved him.
Yeah.
I mean, Deion Sanders came off very flashy, but guess what? His teammates loved him. Michael Irvin is another guy that and then Michael Irvin did some things too, but the bottom line was his teammates loved him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think Terrell Owens was one of the same ways. Every teammate that I've run across that played with Terrell Owens, they really enjoyed Terrell Owens.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I wish more people would take that into account.
Yeah, absolutely. And the media, it's funny, the same people be like, don't trust the media, look it up yourself. But they're the same ones who please tell me what to think. Tell me what to think. It's like, do your own research.
There's no such thing as off the record. Let me put it that way.
Oh, yeah. Very true. Very true.
There's no thing as off the record.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Kirkland, it has been such a blessing, not only meeting you, having you come on the show. Thank you for your selflessness, for just taking the time out of your busy schedule to come hang out with me for a little bit. And,
no problem, Doug.
And I know you have a few podcasts. Did you want to shout them out where people could find you and where they could do to support you and stuff?
Well, if you want to check out the Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland, that's going to be with the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame. And you can check us out at www.scfootballhof.org. And that's where you'll find the Inside Blitz with. And then the Levon Kirkland, Clemson Football with Levon Kirkland, you can always go with the Believe website. And that'll show you what we're doing as far as Clemson football is concerned. So that's a good show with me and my guy Will. And we just talk coffee shop, and then we talk a little bit of Clemson football.
That's awesome. And man, that's so cool. And folks, if you caught that, I'm going to make sure that link is going to be down in the description for those different websites. So you go ahead and follow our guy, Levon Kirkland. Man, thank you so much for coming on, my brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate it. Anytime you need me, let me know, okay?
Will do. Hey, God bless you. And folks, thanks for watching The Touchdown. Take care.